Well, good afternoon. The week before Christmas, counting down the hours, minutes, days of the celebration of Christ's birth and all that it means to each of us as individuals and with our families. And certainly when we consider the year we've had, that just lends itself to even a more special um, sanctified aspect to Christmas. Just thinking about how the coming of Christ truly transforms our lives, gives us overcoming power and perspective in terms of just not being influenced by the things of the world, the way the world is, where we're not cast to and fro in terms of the different circumstances we may face, but we, through Christ, become more than conquerors and are able to overcome the things that confront us in this life. And really, that's the whole message of Christmas: God invading human history, God invading the human species, if you will, in terms of just showing His identification with us, His willingness to condescend Himself, to become a man, to be able to reveal Himself in a more significant way. But what I figured I would do over the past next couple of days, won't be around next week. Traditionally, the time I take as far as time off, and when normally the activity that is around Christmas, that week between Christmas and New Year's really does become really a need of rest, for myself and Kelly as well. Now that she's just on staff here, but anyways. What I figured I would do in the next 2 days is look at the miracles of Christmas. When you think about the wonder of what makes Christmas what it is, just how God shows that He was on the scene, that He was active, that He was doing something unique and special. And I count 10 different things that He did to show that He was on the move. So whether we get through all 10 in 2 days, we'll see, but I'd figure I would give some reflections on each one of them. And then really where we start, the first miracle that God performed in terms of just again showing that He's on the move is really what was happening with John the Baptist's parents, Zachariah and Elizabeth. Two maybe lesser known people in terms of the Christmas story. But when you think about the significance of John the Baptist and his presence here on this earth, the fact that he was a forerunner, he was the one that God placed to be a prophet, crying out in the wilderness, saying something different is happening, God is doing a new thing, the Messiah is coming, and so it's not that attention would be focused on John, but John ultimately focused the attention on Jesus, and that really that starts with John's birth. Zachariah was, and both Elizabeth, he and Elizabeth both were descendants of Aaron, so that put them in a priestly class. What the book of Luke describes to us is that different groupings of priests would be identified in terms of performing service in the temple. When you think about all the things that needed to happen in terms of keeping the temple running, whether that would be the sacrifices and the different aspects that would go around that in terms of the altar, and cutting animals up in the way that was defined by different sacrifices that were made, the guilt offerings, sin offerings, thank offerings, all the different fellowship offerings, if I didn't mention that already. Just the different things. And then in addition to that, where it becomes more substantive for Zechariah, we had the holy place, in terms of the inner sanctum that really further defined the presence of God. You had the holy place and then the most holy place. The most holy place is where the Shekinah glory of God resided above the Ark of the Covenant. And the staff of Aaron and the tablets of stone, being there, representing God's oversight of the covenant with the Jews, and how the law and the promises of God and the miracle of God, were substantive to that. But outside of the most holy place was the holy place, where you had the showbread, you had the candelabra, you had the altar of incense, and so basically those things needed to be maintained. The instruction, particularly in terms of the altar of incense, that had to be kept going all the time. They could never go out. And so you think about, again, the responsibility that would be for the priest to maintain that. Well, what the book of Luke tells us is that, this miracle of the angel coming to Zechariah, again, the first miracle that it can be accounted for in terms of showing that God was on the move around Christmas, came when Zechariah was taking on that responsibility. His lot was chosen, so his class of priests would be at the temple doing various things, and he was chosen to be the one that would be taking care of this altar of incense. Naturally, in terms of God's communication to Zechariah, sadly, certainly that couldn't happen in the Holy of Holies. Zechariah would not have access to that place. That was for the high priest, differentiating between the priestly class and the one who would be the high priest at any particular point in history. And so therefore, God is revealing himself as close as he can, dealing with Zechariah and Elizabeth, chosen to be the parents of John the Baptist. And so this angel comes, standing at the right side of the altar of incense, as Zechariah is there. And so therefore the angel coming, and this actually adds another miracle that I even didn't think about in terms of what's going on, is that, the angel is present, so that's the first thing. Zechariah is seeing that God is on the move, but then because of Zechariah's interaction with the angel and the fact that he expresses doubt in the context of this conversation, Zechariah is struck dumb, that he can't speak. And so, just imagine Zechariah goes in. It's described that people are outside of the Holy of Holies praying, in terms of just the worship of God that would be associated with that. And so now Zechariah comes out and he can't talk. and the third miracle that happens, even in the context of this story, is the fact that Elizabeth, who was barren, is the angel says that she will be with child. And so three things happen right in this context. And the Bible actually says that there was a stir in Jerusalem. That people were wondering, well, what's the significance of this child? That God has done all these things. But that's just the forerunner. That's just the child that would come and declare that Jesus is coming. John said to himself that I have to become less, he has to become more. I'm not worthy of tying the laces on his sandals. In terms of just John, his humility and recognizing the role that he has. And so therefore that started, right at the beginning. I don't know to what extent you would consider this a miracle or just whatever you would associate it with, an anomaly, that just another thing connected to Elizabeth, that when Mary comes to Elizabeth to kind of share with her the idea that she has a miraculous birth in her, or a miraculous pregnancy in her, in the same way that Elizabeth has a miraculous pregnancy. And so when Mary comes, John the Baptist jumps in Elizabeth's womb. And so even before he was born and was an actual human being outside of his mother, he's certainly still a human being inside his mother, we know that, but he jumps in the womb. And so again, there's an aspect of a miracle there, that the baby John the Baptist knows he's in the presence of the Messiah, in terms of two fetuses, two human beings inside their mother's wombs, engaging with each other in terms of that. And that's a miracle in and of itself. So that's just the precursor, and then when we think about the other miracles that occur, certainly focus around Mary. We know for her that an angel comes to her to give her the message of what's going on with her and to her. When we think about the miracle of just an angel showing up, a lot of these miracles that, again, showing that God is on the move, involve angels. When you think about angels, that word angel, angelos, in the Greek, actually means messenger. And so the angels certainly were a sign that God was on the move, that he was doing something different. And so these angels communicating to individuals, but then the fact that they've come, again, creating a stir within a community. And so here this angel comes to Mary and says, another miracle that's going to be happening is that you're going to be, as a virgin, you're going to have a baby. But that baby's not going to have an earthly father. It's not going to come through the normal ways that babies come, because he is going to be the Son of God. And so therefore it's going to be the Holy Spirit that comes over you and provides, in physiological sense, the male DNA. The aspect of making Jesus a human being as well as God, the Holy Spirit providing the DNA that would make Jesus who he is. And so that would be why, so that he could be called the Son of God. As you talk about the Trinity and how interesting it is that the Holy Spirit comes upon her. The Father doesn't come upon her. The Holy Spirit comes upon her, and he produces a work in her. But then who is he seen to be a son of? Not a son of the Holy Spirit, but the Son of God the Father. And so how is that interesting, is in terms of the equality and the fully expressed nature of God being in all the different members of the Trinity, members of the Godhead, and how they interact, even in the birth of Christ. But that again, through two miracles with Mary there, an angel again coming to her to give her a message, and then the fact that she is a virgin that bears a child. But then really a third miracle for her is, again, that just who this child will be. That the miracle of the incarnation, the wonder of the incarnation, the love expressed through the incarnation, the creativity of God. To say, when you think about, some of you hear me say all the time, really, is, things don't have to be the way they are. God could have created things completely different, could have come up with a different means of how we would function as human beings, how we would accomplish salvation. But to see the wonder and creativity of what God does to say, if I'm going to get humankind to understand me as God, then the most effective way to do that is to become one of them. The miracle, the wonder of God choosing a time of history. We would have to agree, we would have to admit that had to be the best time for God to come. In terms of what the Roman Empire offered the world, what the context of where the Jews were in that time of their history, what different dynamics came about. And I think it was so important why Jesus came when he did. Think about what would happen if Jesus came today. Part of us might wonder, why wouldn't he come today? You have Facebook, you've got, all these different ways that God could communicate, broadcasting, television, internet, different ways that God could reveal himself. But God didn't want that. God didn't want that to be the means by which he would communicate to humankind. And, in terms of just the time frame of the coming of his son. And so, God planning in that time, but then, using these miracles, like I said, to show that he was on the move. Naturally, the next miracle, what do we have? We have 3 with Zachariah and Elizabeth. Really, we've got 3 with Mary, the angel, virgin birth, and the incarnation. Just 1 with Joseph. But how important it was. Again, the miracle of an angel showing up. Again, this was not commonplace. This was not something that, would happen on a normal basis. And so therefore, God sends an angel to Joseph. How important it was, in terms of where Joseph was, the struggle that he had. He knew Mary to be a righteous person. The reason why he chose her to be his wife was the fact that he was a godly man. And so all of a sudden to think that Mary somehow, but what other conclusion could he come to? See, all he could do was operate according to physical reality. that okay, what makes babies happen? You know, that there's a physical creation in terms of that. There's the birds and the bees. That's what makes that happen. What's interesting, maybe even just to mention that, even when we talk about Zachariah's birth, realize Zachariah's birth happened by normal human means, but God opened up Elizabeth's womb when she hadn't had a child before. But here with Mary, something completely different, that it's a virgin womb, and God actually provided the genetic material for that. But how important it was for God to show up and send this angel to Joseph. And in something that isn't really expressly mentioned in the Bible, but something that we can imagine in terms of just what stir this happened in the stir that happened in Nazareth. You think about the different areas of Judah, of Israel, Palestine, and God, through Zechariah, through Elizabeth, through John the Baptist and his birth, a stir happening in Jerusalem. Then up north, up in Galilee, in Nazareth, there's a stir there. So God's doing something. When you think about the upstanding people that Joseph and Mary had to be, and just the reality of, again, this upstanding person in the community, you think about the kind of people God would choose to bear the Son of God, to parent the Son of God. And just think about them living in that community. Yes, there's probably derision, there's probably criticism, there's probably judgment that goes to Mary. But in the back of their minds, I think they would have to say, but it's Mary. Like Mary's not a liar. She's not a floozy. She's not someone running around. She's not someone that would get pregnant outside of marriage. And so even though, again, they're dealing with physical reality, a part of them would be saying, God must be doing something different, or at least that potential being there. And then when you think about Joseph, Joseph, I love one of my favorite Jesus movies, telling the story of Jesus's life, is the Jesus of Nazareth, and I just love what they do, with things that the Bible doesn't express, doesn't talk about specifically, but you can imagine, part of an Israelite community, a Jewish community, would be this, and I just love the character of the rabbi that's in Nazareth. And I love the interaction that the rabbi has with Joseph, as it would make sense, as Joseph is considering what is he going to do with Mary? I'm a righteous man. I don't want to stone her. I don't want to kill her. I love the girl, but I also can't marry her because, again, again, we know that Joseph at that point was, let's send her away. And just imagine the conversation that he would have with this rabbi. Then all of a sudden, the angel comes, and what the rabbi now knows is that Joseph is no longer sending Mary away. He's going to marry Mary. And so, I just think that the community, the rabbi, the people there would know, boy, there's something different going on here. With this couple, and so that's pretty good. We got through 5 or 6, just 3 different characters, but 4 characters. But again, clearly God shows that he was on the move, that he was doing something unique, doing something special, and we shouldn't be surprised. God has really never been shy to reveal himself in miraculous ways. That expresses his care and concern, reflects and expresses his provision to us. And what greater provision we could be. What more significant work? Again, there's nothing more significant than Jesus. And so all the things that God did to show that he was on the move. So maybe I'll have to rush through the other 6 or 7 that we have here. But God bless you in your day today.